So if you're looking for a ton of prurient content, this documentary isn't going to provide what you're looking for. But if you want something that could spark some conversation, Money Shot just might fit the bill. Money Shot follows the rise of the most famous adult entertainment platform and the backlash it has received. As anti-trafficking organizations seek justice for victims, can the online giant protect those from whom they profit, or is this a new wave of censorship for adult performers making consensual content? Alright, so I'm not going to say the full name of this documentary because it would get the video just instantly demonetized. But Money Shot is going to be available on Netflix, and it tells the story of a particular website that was, and maybe even still is, one of the top adult tube sites on the internet. And we'll just say this is a hub for a certain type of content. Now, the documentary gets interviews from multiple perspectives, which is good to help tell a more balanced story, giving us the perspective of those that have used the site as a business opportunity, uploading their personal content just in order to monetize it and control the access of what's out there, as well as being able to control their own environments that they work in. And like I said at the start, if you're coming into this documentary hoping to see all kinds of fleshy action, you'll be pretty disappointed. There is a little bit, but not anywhere to the degree that you might think. In addition to the content creators, there are interviews with advocates of the industry as well as opponents. And when we hear from the opponents, that's when the documentary begins to feel just a little bit manipulative. Now, a large portion of the story looks at the exploitative nature of this particular website and how non-consensual content was being uploaded and distributed, which then only added to the content on the site that was available for online advertisers to then sponsor. So much of this comes down to greed. But the issue is that the non-consensual content is akin to assault, and there's a better word for it. Again, I'm going to get demonetized if I use that R word. But the site, it was very negligent in policing the content that was being uploaded. And that's then the impetus that was used to begin the campaign to end the site. Now, opponents use the term trafficking, which has a lot of different connotations, but basically their main point was that the site was a child trafficking site, which obviously is a horrific thing, and of course it should be stopped. During the course of this information, though, we get to hear from two different organizations that have the goal of ending child trafficking. And as the documentary is trucking along, I'm in agreement with the opponents. I mean, not necessarily in just shutting the entire thing down, but to at least put in all kinds of safeguards to really prevent the terrible and non-consensual content from ever appearing. And it has to be said that even the performers who upload their own content, they're in favor of getting rid of all the non-consensual content also, because it also harms their business in various ways. So the story keeps unveiling more and more about the opponents, and that's when I get very conflicted feelings, because at first they're purporting this to be an anti-trafficking organization, but it's revealed that they started out as a religious organization that was really just attempting to shut down this entertainment industry as a whole. But then they changed their tact and their name and took on the front of trafficking. Now, I'm all for their fight in that, but it just felt like a bait and switch on the documentary's part. Like, I'm all behind the organization's work, and then we get to hear more of their motives, and that then takes a just completely different approach to their goal. Now, if they want to end the industry, that's their prerogative. But be forthright in that instead of this way that it comes across in the documentary. In the midst of all this info, we're also told of a New York Times reporter who started to dive into some cases of teen content that was being uploaded to the site and then distributed. And this is not only harrowing, but it's also very upsetting and even heartbreaking. We get to hear some testimony from one of the victims. It's sad to hear of her experience and then the ongoing fight that she had to have the non-consensual content removed. This portion reminded me of another documentary that was on Netflix just a bit ago, The Most Hated Man on the Internet, where then people were uploading images and video of people without their consent and then refused to take it down. Or if it did get taken down, somebody else would upload it again, just creating this never-ending cycle of anguish for the victim. Now, we get to see some of that here. And I think the documentary does a good job of highlighting a lot of different angles to the story. But a few times, I just wanted it to dive deeper into a conversation. I feel that we get the most perspective on the performers, and they have some very compelling arguments and ideas. It's funny that a lot of things that the opponents wanted in regard to the site were also wanted by the performers. There's accountability, safeguards, and moderation. I like that the discussions that are raised in this not only pertain to the adult entertainment industry and their websites, but also can and should be applied to any other content sharing website as well. Non-consensual sharing of somebody's content can be very harmful, and while the solutions, they might be complex, some good starting ideas are presented in the documentary. This is about an hour and 40 minutes long, so it certainly doesn't drag on and outstay its welcome. And I found a lot of the information really to be thought-provoking and conversation-starting when it looks at responsibility and consent. Now, the interviews, they're captured well, and the whole production is put together in a cohesive manner. But it also feels like some information isn't complete, or that some items have just kind of fallen off of the narrative. There's an opponent to the industry who is prominent for a bunch of the documentary, and then she kind of disappears from the conversation. I didn't feel like there was closure for her part, which I thought was odd, because whether or not you agree with her, she created a very influential movement that garnered a lot of attention. And it would have been great to dive more into her to get a better understanding of her background, similar to that of the other organizations that I'd mentioned before. So all in all, this was informative and heartbreaking. I like the discussions this can create because it's not a cut and dry black and white argument. There are a lot of nuances to what went on, and there are some excellent arguments raised about responsibility, consent, and ownership. I think there's more of this story that really could be told and areas that should have been examined more, but the information is presented in a cohesive and easy to understand manner and uses its time efficiently. The interviews are captured well and create some compelling storytelling, regardless of where you stand on the issues. There's some sex and nudity, a bunch of profanity, and while no violence is shown, there are descriptions of violence, including assault. Now, as a reminder, I don't give couch ratings to documentaries, but if you're curious about the industry, and more so how the ideas can have just further reaching effects on the internet in general, you might want to check out Money Shot on Netflix. So, what are you watching right now? Anything exciting or engaging? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.